Hi, Minesh here, and I'm really excited to share this with a very, very successful entrepreneur. More important is he has an interesting journey, both spiritual as well as from entrepreneurial perspective. And he has created a platform called Simplero, which I use for my own online marketing. So please welcome Kelvin here. Kelvin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Minesh. It's so good to meet you. It's so good to spend time with you. And thanks for everybody watching.
Well, I appreciate that. And between the two of us, at least I know you understand Indian accent because you spent a year in India.
I did. I lived in Mysore for a year, waking up at 3:30 every day and practicing yoga. Oh yeah.
Wow. And you talked about Ashtanga yoga that you and your wife were practicing for that year.
Yep.
So that's
Totally.
amazing. I was born
Yeah.
in a city called Agra, which maybe you're familiar with. It's where Taj Mahal is located. And I came to US, and then obviously you came from Denmark, right?
I did. Yeah.
Exactly. How long have you been in the US now?
I moved here twice. I moved here the first time in 1999, so that's 22 years ago now. And then the second time was in 13. And then I've been here since.
Fantastic. Now, in your case, you are one of those people who is driven to support other people. You're driven to help create opportunity for people, help their dreams come true. So, how did you actually realize something like that was your goal? Because maybe yoga is connected to it somehow. I don't really know. So, tell me a little bit about how you started on this journey.
It was, yeah, it's been quite a journey to come to that realization. It sort of started in 2003. I started a software company. It was going well. I'd won startup of the year in Copenhagen where I lived. And then I called this advisory board meeting, brought 5 guys in. We were talking business strategy for hours. And then afterwards, I brought out some beers and then we just kicked back and, let the hair loose and had a sip of beer. And one of the guys, Thomas, he looked me straight in the eyes and he was like, Calvin, we've been here for 3 hours and I still don't know what you want. And it was such a puzzling moment for me because it was like multiple voices in my head. One was like, what do you mean? What do I want? I want to be successful. I want a big successful company. That's what I want. And the other part was like, I didn't know that I was allowed to want something in business. I thought that when it comes to business, you just like leave all your feelings and your desires and your personality and all that stuff somewhere else. And then you go and you be all business like. And third, I don't know what I want. So like all this was going on in my mind and I had this like kind of moment and it started me down a path of what is it I want? Like, what am I here to do? I was so obsessed with being successful, right? With money and exits and proving myself worthy of existing by making lots of money. I felt like that was what I needed to do, that I just had never asked myself, what do I actually want? And it took 5 years before I was able to answer the question. I had to do therapy and coaching and body therapy. And I found a spiritual teacher that I work with and I became a coach. And all of this, reading tons of books and all of this like helped me. What I realized was that I didn't know what I wanted because I couldn't feel myself, right? You can't figure out what you want up here in your left brain, right? You just doesn't have any answers. People who sever the connection between the left and the right brain, they can't decide what socks to put on. Wow. They can't decide what they want to eat for breakfast, right? You have to have that connection to your emotional self in order to answer that. But I couldn't feel anything.
Interesting.
And so that was a journey for me. And then after having done all this stuff and worked with a spiritual teacher, I had this moment where I was like, all right, let me sit down and find out what it is that I want to do. And I wrote down some questions for myself and went through these exercises. And what came to me was, I'm here to integrate spirituality and entrepreneurship. And what that means specifically for me is like, at first I was like, what does that mean? It was just like, I could just feel it. But then, I defined it. So for me, it's about relating to your thoughts and your beliefs, right? So just because a thought is in your head doesn't mean it's true. Just because it's a belief you have doesn't mean it's true, right? So questioning your beliefs and just constantly being questioning your beliefs, right? And cherishing every time you realize, oh, I was wrong about this thing, right? Yay, I was wrong. Amazing. Freedom, new opportunities. It means emotionally learning to deal with feelings. We're human beings. Feelings is a huge part of who we are. Most people do what I did, which is repress everything, right?
Yes.
So you're just never really feeling anything. And then every once in a while, like you can't keep it in, like trying to keep a beach ball underwater. And then like it just bursts out and you have this like vomit of like feelings all over the place, right? Like, I'm angry, or I'm like sad, or you cry, or whatever. That's not very, very healthy. So learning to feel feelings authentically in the moment, learning to process all of the buried feelings that you weren't able to process in the moment, and getting all that stuff out. Very important too, right? Like the emotional roller coaster of entrepreneurship is a cliche, because it's real, because it's like most people are either like, hey, you have a win and you're high, and then you're like, low. And learning that it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually be pretty in a good, happy, joyful place the whole time. And every time you get triggered is an opportunity to free yourself from one more of those buried feelings. And then it's purpose, it's love, and it's the present moment. So those are sort of the four, right? So if you're going to do a business, it better damn well be something that you feel is your purpose for being, right? Yeah. Otherwise, you're just going to quit and give up.
Correct.
Presence or present moment, a lot of people are stuck either in the past of like regretting stuff, or fantasizing about the future, or being scared about the future. And the only moment that matters, and the only moment that you can actually make a difference, is the present moment. And then finally, the love piece. They say that the longest journey is from a man's head to his heart. Learning to open our hearts is one of the hardest things that there are, one of the most important things that there are. And realizing that business is fundamentally, life for me fundamentally is about my ability to open my heart and take all of life in and share love with all of life. And that's what it's about. Business, sure, we need to make money, we need to make products, we need to serve customers, we need the teams, we need all these things. But at the end of the day, it's not about any of those things. It's just about expanding our capacity for love. And the business is just another vehicle for doing that.
Very good. Well, most people don't talk like that, because most people, when they talk about business, they're talking about profit, expansion, market share. But you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy what you do, don't have a love and passion for what you do, and you don't feel you're really making that connection with people, right? Then the rest really is pretty robotic. And at some point, it feels pretty, as they say, empty and meaningless, so to speak,
Exactly.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So I totally
those
get
things
that.
are great, right? But
correct.
if without that core, it's like, okay, so what?
Exactly. And you will ask that question at some point, right? At some point, you're going to ask that question. Is this all there is to it, right?
Right.
So let me ask you, just because obviously I want people to really know one of the platforms that you have built, how does that serve people, entrepreneurs, in their journey to basically get what they want?
Yeah. I mean, great question. So I created Simplero because from that moment, I was like, I need to teach this to other entrepreneurs. And so that's how I was just a programmer, and at that point, a not very good entrepreneur. And so I was like, how do I teach this stuff? And that's when I discovered online courses. And then I was doing that. And then I was like, I think I can do the software piece better. And so I did that piece by piece. And it's really about creating that one platform that does pretty much all that you need all in one place, so that you as the entrepreneur don't have to waste your mental bandwidth and your spiritual bandwidth and your financial bandwidth on all of these different tools, but you can do it all in one place. And have that sense of momentum and not be stopped by your tool, but you can easily move forward. And really what I like for me, and this is just me personally, my mission with all this, one of the things that I realized back then in 2008, when I came to that realization about spirituality and entrepreneurship, is this is the way that we as humanity overcome all of the challenges that we're facing, right? Name a challenge and you can overcome it with entrepreneurship, which is basically just about making change happen, right? In a financially sustainable way, combined with spirituality, where you're doing your own work in your present, and then you can affect, positive, meaningful change in the world. So if I can create a platform where more people can do that kind of business and also help other people, like anything we want is possible when we change, when we raise ourselves, right? As individuals, right? You, Minesh, in your life, as you grow, spiritually, personally, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you can achieve your goals and desires. As we do that as humanity, and a mass of people, raise their own maturity level in that way, then we as humanity can solve all of these challenges and achieve the things that we dream of. And so that's really what Simplero does for me, is it like creates that platform and that movement where we can bring together all of those teachers that help people up level their lives.
Very true, very true. And that's one of the key hallmarks of your platform. It is for people who want to teach courses, online courses especially, that people can actually tap into and make it available, because an entrepreneur in his journey or her journey has a lot of knowledge that has been gathered, and now there are other people who can benefit from it. In my opinion, an entrepreneur in a capitalistic society is somebody who figures out a solution to a problem, and then, like you said, in a financially sustainable way. So that way, not only the people whose problem is being solved are being helped, but the person who is helping also can grow and reach other people and continue to evolve in his or her own journey, while other people are benefiting from the mind, the creativity, the possibilities that the person present. And I think entrepreneurship is the only way to solve problems on the planet, because an entrepreneur sees a solution where somebody else sees a problem. And I think
Exactly.
that's the key. That's really the
Yeah,
key. And when you can see solutions instead of problems, you are grown to the next level of consciousness. And then you see the
exactly.
next level of consciousness. And I totally agree with you on that. So, what are some of the common challenges you feel people face, so that you and I can actually connect again and we can share some more information to the people who might kind of resonate with those challenges and say, hey, you know what? I think I'm facing one of those challenges. And maybe Kelvin, along with Minesh's support, can give that kind of over provide some insight into overcoming that challenge.
Yeah. Great question. So yeah, I mean, and as we talk about this, it's one of the things that I love to do the most is like, just, bring me your naughtiest challenges and I'll do whatever I can to help you get unstuck there. Right. And sometimes some people need, to tune in and discover how they're blocking themselves with their mindset, or their emotional something that's going on, or something that they're avoiding, right? And so we'll go there and look at that. Other people need more sort of on the action side, on the practical side, like they just need a strategy and they need to go execute it, right? So it depends on people. Like sometimes it's like, dude, you need to look at your body and actually start to exercise and take care of your body, because that's actually what's holding you back. So it really, like, usually there's a challenge that we think we're facing, and then there's what's really going on underneath it, and that's what I find the most exciting, right? So I like to latch on to sort of any level business challenge that you're having, right? From like, my offer isn't converting to right, my, like, how do I narrow down who my customer is, to like, I'm like going from like 5 to 10 people on my team, and like, how do I manage that transition to, or like hiring, and like, anything related to that business. I don't know anything when it comes to sort of corporate level business, right? I know small business size. My business is 35 people at this point. That I know how that works. I know how we got here. I know from a lot of companies like that. I know from a lot of people who are in that, coaching, author, speaker, informational space. That's an area that I have a lot of expertise in. So anything there
Sure.
is, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think people will get a lot of value from learning from your experiences, diverse set of experiences, all from technical side, like one side, entrepreneurial, spiritual is the other side. And I think a lot of people will enjoy at least interacting with you to see something that they possibly don't see, what's holding them back. So I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to connecting with you again soon on that. Is there anything else you would like to share before we wrap up this part of the conversation?
No, I appreciate you, Minesh, a lot for doing this. I think it's a fantastic thing, and I appreciate your audience for showing up and asking great questions. It takes courage sometimes to ask a good question. It's something that I've had to learn. I was at a talk with Gary Vaynerchuk like a year and a half ago, where you know Gary. If you know Gary Vaynerchuk, you know that he always does Q&A, right? And I was sitting there right next to the microphone, and I didn't go over and get in line because I was thinking, well, I don't have a question. What would I ask? And like in hindsight, I should have just gotten in line, and like I would have figured out a question between getting in line and like getting a shot at asking my question. Versus I sat there till there was like 20, 30 people in line, and there was like no way that they were ever going to get to my question, right? And in some of the training programs and coaching programs that I'm a member of, I've made myself just get in there, raise my hand, ask a question. Maybe it's not like the perfect question, but the trick is to just ask a question that I'm interested in and that's relevant, and then the person will end up talking, and I'll learn a ton from it, right? So I get a bunch from it. So I highly encourage everybody to not be a lurker, but actually take the opportunity to just like fire away. Like, what are you curious about? Like, what are you struggling with? And be honest and be vulnerable and be brave, because it takes a bit of courage, but it really, really pays off to do it.
Thank you. And my opinion is that people ask a question like the one that you're talking about, a burning question, an important question. That very act breaks through the difference between who they think they are versus the talk they have.
Totally.
And when they separate the two is when they when they have the courage to ask that question. Mm-hmm. And until that moment, because otherwise they think who they are, and the self-talk and everything else is the same, they don't bring up the courage to actually ask the question. So the very act of asking the question is really opening up the possibilities in their life, and they don't even think that. We don't even think that.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. I have a friend who was telling me how he was in a room with a bunch of billionaires, like top level entrepreneurs, and then they were like, he was at lunch with them, and then someone was like, hey, what can I help you with? Or like, what's something that you need? And he's like, oh, nothing. I'm good. I'm fine. And then someone took him aside afterwards, and he was like, you're really stupid. Like, you're sitting here in a room with like super, exactly. And you don't dude, just come up with a question, right? Something. Really, you should have just a list of questions that you can draw on at any time, like when you get in a situation like that. But like, don't waste an opportunity like that. So yeah, I really
it's
took
about
that.
being vulnerable, being able to expose your weakness. And that's not
exactly
easy. Asking a
yeah,
question
and it takes
your weakness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you have to think a little bit to come up with like, what is a good relevant question, right? And I have a friend who's like, what is the question so that that's so valuable to me that I would pay $100,000 for the answer. And just like thinking that way of like, what's $100,000 question for me?
I think that's a very good, powerful question.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, what would that be? That's a good thing to ponder, right?
Yeah. And I agree. It could be $1 million or $1 billion question, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the ability to ask that question creates the openness for the transformation to occur.
Yeah. Questions are so much more powerful than answers.
Well, question is the only way you think. Mm-hmm. There is no other thinking. Otherwise it's repeating whatever is already going on, right? So that's really doesn't create an opening as well. So anyway, it looks like you and I can talk about that forever. So I really appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to being able to connect you with the people that can really, really benefit, because they are ready to listen to and get the information that you can provide. So thanks again
Nice.
for the opportunity. I appreciate that. And I'm sure people will be getting a lot of benefit from your experience, your knowledge, having worked and helped so many people.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Minesh. I'm looking forward to it.